Hello everybody, and welcome to Pants' Guide to Yogg-Saron Light.
I'm going to talk about the boss abilities, and then I'll show a 10-man kill, followed by a 25-man kill, and talk about the differences between the two versions of the fights, and give some helpful tips and tricks as a DPS. If you like this video, then please consider liking and subscribing, as it helps me out a great deal. Alright, let's hop into the fight. Phase 1. When you step into the arena, the fight begins and you'll see some green clouds floating throughout the area. Do not stand in these. They are bigger than they appear, so be careful not to get too close to them. Touching them will spawn an ad called Guardians of Yogg-Saron. These ads spawn on their own over time, but will spawn an additional time for every person who stands in a cloud. When the Guardians die, they explode and deal a lot of shadow damage in a 10-yard radius. 8 of these ads need to be killed on top of Sarah in the center of the room for the fight to change to Phase 2. For a first kill, it's imperative that you never have more than 1 to 2 ads up at a time, so you don't fall behind on DPSing them down. During Phase 1, there are 2 debuffs that will go out on random raid members throughout the phase: Sarah's Blessing and Sarah's Fervor. Sarah's Blessing is a damage over time. It deals 3k damage per second for 20 seconds. Healers just focus these targets and heal them up. Sarah's Fervor increases the damage of the target by 20%, but increases the damage taken by 100%. If this gets on any melee, they must run out of the center of the room to avoid dying when the Guardians explode, as it will one-shot them with the debuff. The Guardians will also cast a Shadow Volley. Melee DPS need to interrupt these, but ranged DPS should be a backup. So any shamans or warlock pets are great because the warlock pets are not going to trigger the clouds and can also get in melee range without worrying about dying. The other thing that needs to happen is that there's going to be mind controls that go out, and those need to be dispelled. So again, shamans, priests, or warlock pets, if they're affliction, can dispel this. Note that if you dispel somebody who's mind controlled inside of a cloud, that they will spawn an ad. So it's really important that if they do get mind controlled and they're standing in a cloud, you have either a DK grip them or a Boomkin use Typhoon, just to push them out so that they're not going to spawn an ad once they're not mind controlled anymore. And that's it for Phase 1. I'll say this again, don't stand in clouds. If you do stand in a cloud, it will tell everybody in your raid through the chat box. Your guild should make fun of you, and you should feel bad. On our first kill, we told our melee to stay out and not DPS in Phase 1. This helped them avoid touching clouds and dying to explosions. If your ranged DPS are strong enough to kill the ads on their own, then I recommend doing this as well. Making sure you don't spawn too many Guardians is crucial to beating Phase 1. It's an extremely easy phase when done correctly, but one person standing in clouds can cause a wipe. Positioning yourself correctly is extremely important as a caster or healer. Do not keep rotating as a cloud pushes you in one direction. Run around that cloud so you can still stand and heal or DPS until the next clouds come into your spot, and then do the same thing. You should try to always have your back to the entrance of the room for Phase 1. After 8 Guardians die on top of Sarah, Phase 2 begins. You may have 1 or 2 ads left over from Phase 1, so DPS them down before the tentacles spawn. Make sure not to be standing near them or they may explode and kill you. Once the Guardians from Phase 1 are dead, you'll have to deal with tentacles and a few new mechanics. Sarah will randomly attack and deal damage, which drains 12 sanity from players. This attack is entirely random and cannot be avoided. 3 different kinds of tentacles will spawn in Phase 2. The order you kill them is Constrictor, and then Crusher, and then Corruptor if you're a ranged DPS. Constrictors will pick up a raid member and deal damage to them while preventing them from moving. Players with immunities can be freed by using them, so Mage's Ice Block, Paladin's Bop can free them or they must be killed. These have the least amount of health of all 3 tentacles. Crushers are the big boy tentacles of the group. They have a lot of health and will smack you if you get too close. If you have a pet, do not let it attack the Crushers. The Crushers will one-shot anything that gets too close. Crushers channel a spell called Diminished Power, which reduces the damage of the raid by 20%. This must be interrupted. Any melee attack will interrupt it, but of course they will get hit by the Crusher. So a Paladin using Judgment is perfect for interrupting, due to the 10-yard range of the ability. Since Crushers will attack anything in melee range, this means melee DPS cannot attack them at all, and only ranged DPS should attack Crushers. Although Crushers attack in melee range, their attack is a 15-yard cone. So if you're standing 15 yards from the Crusher, but someone has their pet run in, if the pet gets smacked and you're standing in the same direction as that attack is going off, you will get hit and you will potentially die, as well as any other ranged DPS or healers near you. Warlocks and Hunters should make sure their pets are attacking Corruptors while the players are focusing on the Crushers. As your Brain Room DPS are attacking the brain, the tentacles in the arena will freeze and stop attacking temporarily. This is the only time it's okay for pets or melee to attack Crushers, so take advantage of this if you can. Corruptors, the final tentacle, will put random debuffs on your raid throughout the fight. There is a magic debuff, a curse, a disease, and a poison. Everybody in your raid who can dispel should help in dispelling. Curse of Doom will hit for 20k if it finishes its timer and can one-shot anyone in the raid. The magic debuff is a slow and a cast time debuff. The disease will randomly stun the target, and the poison will drain health and mana. Again, if you can dispel, help your raid out and dispel these immediately. Another mechanic in Phase 2 is called Brain Link. This is a line that will join two players together. If you're more than 10 yards away from each other, the line will be red, and you'll take damage and lose sanity for every second, until you move within 10 yards of each other. The line will be yellow when you're within 10 yards of each other, and you won't take any damage or sanity drain at that point. If you're a ranged DPS and you get linked to a melee, it's the ranged DPS job to move. The melee will probably need to go into a portal and will want to hang out near their portal before they go in. Once a melee goes into the portal, the link will disappear, so it benefits the ranged and the melee if the ranged will get to the melee sooner, so that the line is yellow and the melee can get into the portal without worrying about damage and sanity drain. The final mechanic of Phase 2 is called Malady of the Mind. This will randomly target and fear a member of the raid. This debuff only lasts a few seconds, but it will jump to a new target if somebody is within 5 yards of the affected target. So spread out. If you see anybody who gets Malady, run away from them. This debuff not only fears you, but drains 12 sanity, and on 0 light you can't restore your sanity, so run away from these people. Note that if you're brain linked with somebody and they get Malady, you can stand far enough away for Malady not to jump to you, but also while keeping the link yellow and avoiding any sanity loss from the link. And finally, don't stand in the green beams. They deal a ton of damage and will two-shot most players, so avoid them. I don't have any experience going into the brain room, so it's not something I'm going to talk about in detail. But in 25-man, you have 10 people going in, and for that we have 7 melee, 1 boomkin, 1 hunter, and 1 healer. And on 10-man, you have 4 people go in, and we use 3 melee and 1 healer. Once Yogg's brain gets to 30%, Phase 3 begins. Phase 3 is a race against the clock. Yogg will start at 30% HP and summons Immortal Guardians every 10 seconds. They deal damage based on their HP, which means the higher their health, the more damage they deal. Because this is 0 light, they cannot be killed and will remain at 1 HP forever. This is primarily the job of the melee to DPS them down, as the range will be focused on killing Yogg. Every 50 seconds, Yogg will cast Shadow Beacon. This will target 3 Guardians on the first cast and 5 on the second. After 10 seconds, he will put a heal over time on these Guardians, and they will heal any enemies near them, including Yogg. The adds must be run out of the raid to prevent any adds other than the targeted one from healing. Since the adds do more damage as they have more HP, if they remain grouped together, your tank will get clobbered, and you don't want Yogg healing either. Every 15 to 20 seconds, Yogg will cast Lunatic Gaze. Anyone looking at Yogg will take periodic damage and lose 4 sanity per second. It's important to look away from Yogg to reduce damage and sanity drain. Affliction Warlocks are amazing here, as they can perform their full execute rotation and drain soul during gaze to avoid any damage by just rotating away after they start channeling their drained soul. Shadow Priests and Arcane Mages can also channel Mind Flay and Arcane Missiles respectively while facing away from Yogg. Every 30 seconds, Yogg will cast Deafening Roar. This damages everybody in the raid, but will interrupt and silence anyone who is casting when his Deafening Roar goes off. So if you see Yogg casting this, make sure to stop casting so you don't get interrupted. And that's it for Phase 3. Phase 3 is a DPS race, and the more Warlocks you have, the easier the DPS check will be due to the strength of Drained Soul. Stacking Warlocks isn't necessary, especially as your raid gets stronger from Ulduar gear, but for a first kill it can be immensely helpful to have a lot of Warlocks. Let's hop into the 10-man walkthrough.
Alright, let's talk 10-man Yogg. Now I do think 10-man is a lot easier than 25-man, as the timers are a lot more forgiving, and so is the health of all the mobs. You can see our tank runs and touches a cloud, and this should be the only person who touches a cloud. Nobody should get caught by a cloud. You have more than enough time to move. But we do this so that we can get out of this phase faster by spawning an extra Guardian. Remember, you have to kill 8 Guardians on top of Sarah, who's floating in the middle, to reach phase 2. I have the damage over time debuff on me, so there's nothing I can really do here. Healers just need to pay attention and make sure that I don't take too much damage. You can see the clouds coming in from the right, and there's some coming in from my left. So I'm going to go to the right here, and you see what our boomkin does? Our boomkin runs and hits a cloud because they weren't prepared and they kind of got stuck in the middle there. Make sure you don't do that. We're fine to pick it up because, you know, we're plenty ahead on damage. You can see we didn't even have a guardian up for, you know, a good 10-15 seconds there. So, you know, for us, for our group, we're fine, but for a lesser geared group that's not killing the guardians as fast, it could really cause problems. So just be careful when doing that. And then talking about positioning, you know, I'm still right in front of the entrance of the raid, like, or the arena as you walk into the fight. So you want to make sure that you don't have the clouds kind of pushing you around the room. That's going to spread you out from your healers and just kind of have everybody all across the room, which just makes it really hard for your healers to heal everybody and be in range. You can see I got mind controlled there, so just make sure if you're a class that can dispel that, you know, shaman, priest, warlocks with a pet, just make sure you dispel it, and don't dispel somebody inside of a cloud because that will trigger the cloud and spawn a guardian. See here I have blessing again, but I'm going to disperse, and that reduces some of the damage, but really that was just for mana. Now I get fervor, so now the damage that I'm taking is increased by 100% from the dot, so that's going to be 6k damage a second. So that's a lot, and the healers really need to focus me now. And you know, that's it for phase 1. You can see we're just about done here. Again, we had one more final guardian spawn. I think that's pretty much inevitable. So we kill it and just make sure nobody's near it. And then we all try to get stacked because once the tentacles come out, there's going to be a constrictor that comes out immediately and grabs somebody. So if we're all stacked, it makes it a lot easier for everybody to run and kill that one. So I focus on the crusher, I get my dots on it. I try to spread out from that little range stack that we had. You know, it's only 4 people, but once Malady comes out, we want to make sure that we're not stacked so that it doesn't hit anybody. Which, you know, there's Malady on me right now. So our boomkin needed to move and they didn't, so they got hit by Malady. But, you know, luckily they were sent away from the group, so nobody else got hit afterwards. I got in a constrictor, so I'm just trying to kill this. You can see our boomkin hops on it to kill it too. And they die pretty fast in 10 man. And then I get back on the crusher. Beams, if they're far away, they don't tend to move too far away from their starting location. So I wasn't really worried about those. You can see there's another Malady, and I'm just spreading out to make sure I don't get hit by it. And then running over to help the melee on this corruptor. Our first set of portals haven't gone out yet. You can see they're coming out in 5 seconds. So once that happens, our melee are going to jump down and go take care of the brain room. Another Malady went out. So, you know, just trying to make sure I avoid that person, and then going to kill this crusher that just came up. Now, a problem that can arise with crushers is that they might be next to a portal. It wasn't a problem there, but if they're next to a portal, our melee might not be able to get in without getting smacked. So that can be worrisome. I'm brain linked with a warlock here. You know, we run away from the beam, and what's nice is we can run into the melee range of the crusher here because it's frozen, because our melee are in the brain room. And actually, we're going to do this fight really quickly. We're going to one phase the brain room because our melee are just doing insane DPS down there. So once we kill this crusher, it's almost time for phase 2, honestly. We get to this corruptor that we kill really quickly. And that's kind of it for phase 2. We don't have a second phase 2 or a second part to phase 2. You know, we hop right into phase 3. As you can see, Yogg's health is about to hit 30%. So as I said, 10 mana is a lot more forgiving. It seems like the timer's a lot easier, and that seems to be true across the board for all of 10-man Ulduar, that the hard modes are a lot easier than their counterparts in 25-man, which personally I think is fine. I think, you know, 10-mans require a little bit less coordination. You don't need 25 people. It's a nice entryway into the raid so that you can gear up and then get ready for 25-mans. But that's just my opinion. You know, I'm not a designer or raid, you know, developer or anything like that. Anyway, you know, doing the same things here as 25-man, focusing on making sure I'm not staring at the boss, especially during gaze. You know, gaze does drain your sanity, but it also damages you. So you don't want to take too much damage from that, even if your sanity is pretty high. Now, a good thing to remember is that you can cast a channeled spell and then look away from Yogg and continue casting it. So that's true for Mind Play, it's true for Drain Soul, it's true for Drain Life, and it's true for Arcane Missiles. You can also cast dots while not facing Yogg. So if I turn around, I can cast Vampiric Touch, Devouring Plague, or Shadow Word Pain on him or any one of the Guardians. He's dying so fast here that It's really not a problem. We just burn the boss down. And even though my sanity is low at 18 right now, we kill him and he doesn't even get another cast off. So perfectly fine. Really easy fight on 10 man, at least relative to the 25 man one. And if your DPS are geared and they don't stand in things, like really just avoid the bad things and you'll be perfectly fine. All right, now let's take a look at this fight on 25 man. So the way we start off Yogg in 25 man is the same way as in 10 man. Our tank's going to run into a cloud. And that is the only person who should ever touch a cloud in phase 1 whatsoever. I'm going to repeat myself and sound like a broken record, but nobody should ever stand in clouds. Again, we do that just so that we have 2 up in the beginning, and that'll help expedite this phase. If we can get it done faster because we're spawning more in the beginning, that's all, we just want 1 more in the beginning. We kill them, and you can see after the second one dies, we're going to have a little bit of time before that third one spawns. Or I guess it happens right as it spawns. But now we're right on track with the third one, and we're going to take our time. You know, this is a time-saving method. Talking about the clouds, you can see we have a group of ranged in the top left corner of the screen who are just going to kind of get pushed around by this cloud. And I ran to the side. You can actually see some of the ranged came and joined me. Just staying in the front of the arena. There's no reason to have clouds kind of push you around and then you have to make this whole circle loop around. So that's just something to be careful of, is cloud placement. That you want to make sure that you're not going to get boxed in by clouds. You're not having one push you around. You can say here 3 were about to converge on the spot that I was standing, so I run outside of it. And then you'll see if with those 2 that are coming in from the left, I can run between them or really just stand between them, and I'm perfectly fine. You know, they might be bigger than they seem, but they're not that big, so you have plenty of room to run out. Remember, there are the 2 debuffs going out, so you might have a dot that deals damage on you over time, or you might have one that increases the damage you deal, but also the damage you take. So if you have that one and you're melee, or if you're range standing too close, just be careful. In the beginning, we did have one of our DKs die because he had the debuff, or he got it just as one of the Guardians spawned. So it's not really his fault that he died. It was pretty unfortunate timing. And then don't forget that there are mind controls that go out. So if you're a class that can dispel, shamans with purge, priests with dispel, or warlocks with their pets, they're foul hunters if you're affliction, make sure you dispel those. And if you dispel anybody in a cloud, they will trigger the cloud and have a guardian spawn. So make sure that if you do dispel them, they are not standing in a cloud. DKs can death grip them, or you can have a boomkin typhoon him away. So we came into phase 2, we had 1 guardian up and we killed him pretty quickly. Phase 2 starts, we have a constrictor up that died from the melee, and then they go and focus on the corruptor to the side there. I dot up the corruptor because I'm just trying to multi-dot and get as much damage as I can on it, and then I just go and focus the crusher. If you're a class that can multi-dot, I would definitely recommend taking advantage of putting dots up on multiple targets. You can see a constrictor spawns and I just start killing it right away, or melee hop to it so it dies really fast. Again, dotting up the corruptor and then focusing back on the crusher. You can see we kind of have a loose spread. You know, obviously the melee are running in here, but our ranged are loosely spread out in the same area because of Malady, which just came out. As soon as that comes out, everybody runs away. So you just want to make sure that you get out away from Malady, because that's the easiest way to wipe in this phase, is to have that just ping-ponging around the raid, draining everybody's sanity. So you want to make sure that doesn't happen. So that crusher died. I'm dotting up this corruptor, and then I'm going to boots over to the crusher on the other side, because again, that's our primary target. I used dispersion there to regenerate some mana while I was moving, and I didn't lose any DPS uptime because, again, it was while I was moving. There's a lot of times where you're just going to be running around the arena, getting from one side to the next. You can see the crusher is frozen here because our melee are attacking the brain in the brain room. So what's nice is that warlocks can send their pets. Any melee that we have up can go and attack them. And you can see there's a warlock pet going in now. And you know, it's a time to free DPS. And if there was other tentacles nearby, I would definitely try to multi-dot them. But this is the only one we have up, or at least the only one on this side. So this phase is pretty easy once everything's frozen. Again, our DPS is really high, so you might have more tentacles up than this when they all get frozen. So, you know, phase 2 is just a rinse and repeat of that. So it'll be 2 phases for us. The first phase, our melee DPS get Yogg to 60% here, I guess a little bit less. And then the second phase will get him to 30%. Now the important thing here is that if your melee get Yogg to 30% and there's still tentacles up, then you're going to transition to phase 3 with extra things to kill. And as soon as phase 3 starts, you're going to start getting Immortal Guardians. You're going to have Yogg casting his Lunatic Gaze. So you wanna coordinate with your melee so that if they're at like 35%, but you still have 2 or 3 tentacles up, that they slow down and don't kill Yogg, so that you guys so all the ranged can kill the tentacles, or at least get as close as possible before that transition occurs, because you don't want to have extra tentacles up while you're trying to kill Yogg in phase 3, because that's just more damage you're going to lose when it's already a pretty tight DPS check just to, like, before you're going to die. So that's just something to keep in mind. Make sure you guys have good open communication going, and you'll be perfectly fine on that front. So we kill the Crusher, again dispersing, there we go, for mana, and then going to focus on the Corruptor. You can see we're pretty far ahead here on DPS. Our melee, so if you look at Yogg's health, he's at 34%, 33%. They are slowing down a little bit for us as we were finishing up on this Corruptor rather. And then we hop into phase 3. They push him to 30%. Everybody's ready to go. The first Guardian spawns, and everybody moves to the side of Yogg. That's our decided stack point. And here it's just a race to kill him. So if you're ranged, you want to focus on Yogg. If you're in melee, you'll kind of be switching between Yogg and the Guardians. So during Lunatic Gaze, you can see I'm casting Mind Flay, and then I'm turning around. So again, you can keep channeled spells going even if you're not facing the target. The other thing that benefits Shadow Priest and Warlocks here is that you can cast dots while not facing your target. So I can turn around and cast Vampiric Touch, or Devouring Plague, or Shadow Word Pain. And I can hit the Guardians with that. I can hit Yogg with that. Same thing is true for Affliction Locks. They can cast Corruption and Unstable Affliction while facing away from Yogg or the Guardians. So not only can you channel your main spell, your filler, whether that's Drain Soul or Arcane Missiles if you're a mage, or Mind Flay as a Shadow Priest, while not facing Yogg, you can also put dots up on targets, which really helps your DPS. And you can see we have 6-7 Warlocks in this raid, so there's a lot of dot damage going out. And like, my sanity is fairly high. I'm at 44 right now, so I'm not too worried about getting mind controlled. I'm definitely not going to keep facing Yogg or face him too much during the Lunatic Gaze, because not only does it drain your sanity, but it does deal a lot of damage. And as you get further into your phase, you're going to need a lot of healing, especially on your tanks. So if your healers have to focus you, that's just taking away from some tank healing that could be happening. So make sure you're not getting hit by Deafening Roar and it's not silencing you. You want to make sure you stop casting there. See, our raid's taking some damage, so you want your healers just to be able to focus on your tanks, and your DPS just keep punching away at Yogg. And that's kind of it. You can see our tanks kited the adds away because they were going to heal up, and then they deal a lot of damage. So if they can boots away before they get smacked and killed, that's kind of the goal, is to just kind of have them ping-ponging around and not healing Yogg in that final phase. And that's the fight on 25-man. I definitely think 25-man is harder, so if you're a guild that's struggling on 25-man, it'd be a great idea to get your guild into 10-man to practice. I do think that it's a lot easier in 10-man, but it'll get everybody accustomed to the phases just so that they know what they're doing, and there's less time spent, maybe wandering around the platform or not quite getting into position. So I definitely think that starting with a 10-man kill is a good way to work into a 25-man kill if you're having trouble. I hope this guide helps you secure a kill as you work on one of the tougher challenges in Ulduar. I'll be creating more ranged DPS focused content in the near future, so remember to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all future content. That's all for today. My name's Pantsface, and I'll see you next time.